Welcome to the St. Genevieve Museum Learning Center. Not as big a crowd as we were hoping for, but maybe some more stragglers will come in. There's a couple more coming, that's great. We are part of the speaker series tonight, as we have been a couple times a month for quite a while now. So we invite everyone to come to these. If you're already a member, you come to these free. They're free. Anyone that we have, they're free of charge. And along with your membership, you get unlimited visits to the museum as well. So we encourage everyone to become a member of our museum. And if you're not a member already, you can use tonight's admission charge and apply that to a membership. So it's a good deal all the way around. So we encourage you to do that. So we have several things coming up this summer. On June 29th, we've got a tractor show, old-time tractors, and I guess we usually have 15, 20 or so tractors lined up in front of the museum. And, you know, kids like dinosaurs, but they kind of like tractors too. There's a kind of even Steven, I think, there. So the kids really get a kick out of it. And we'll be giving tractor rides as well. So that'll be kind of fun. We also have a lot of summer activities for the kids. We've got a new series that they kicked off this summer, Traveling. It's time to travel. And so they take different parts of history, ancient Egyptians, prehistoric beasts, the mighty Vikings. So it's a whole series of programs for kids. So if you've got grandkids or kids that don't have anything to do this summer, bring them to the museum. So we encourage that. So let's get going on tonight's presentation. I was glad to hear we were going to get a photographer here for our speaker series, because it's always been, I won't say a passion of mine. I've always wished that I was a good photographer, but I've never really put the time and effort into it. And it does take some time and effort, as I think we'll find out tonight, but it's well worth it. So I'd like to introduce James Kyle, longtime photographer. And I was very pleased when I talked to him earlier for a radio interview that he's pretty much self-taught. And so I think there's hope for all of us then. If he can do as much as he's accomplished and being self-taught, then there is hope for all of us, I think. So he's been at it a long time, and he teaches classes. Even if it's a class of one, he's happy to teach and pass on the information and pass it along, as it were. So I'm going to let him tell you how he actually got started at 13 years old and still going strong in photography. So was in the school newspaper and developed his own film and learned how to do that. And did you actually use all of these cameras at one time?
Pardon?
Have you used these cameras at one time, like that really old one, and tried it?
Given a shoot, I will use almost all of these that are seen here, because they're all different sizes and different formats.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, James, I'll let you take the floor.
Okay,
James Kyle. Oh, and I might mention, too, that tonight's presentation is brought to you by museum supporters, Frank and Annette Rolfe. So we certainly thank them for sponsoring tonight's event. So, James.
Thank you all for coming. I've been a photographer since I was 13 years old. That's when I started actually taking pictures, or we say making photographs. I was taking them and sending the film in from the local drugstore and waiting for them to come back. It took a week. And I decided with a friend that we would develop our own film. We almost lived at the public library in Ferguson, Missouri, where I was raised. And him and I built little dark rooms in our basement that sealed off the light by collecting cardboard boxes from refrigerators in new subdivisions that were going up. And that was our dark room. To this day, I still use the guest bathroom as my dark room. There's water, there's a drain, and a counter I can set my trays on. I don't have an enlarger. I still have that boxed up. But I can make contact prints. That's where you take the negative, go in the dark room, take out some paper after you turn the searchlight on, put the paper in a frame, put the negative emulsion to emulsion. That's stuff that's going to produce the photograph. So you lay them right on top of each other. Close the lid, which is a piece of glass. Then you turn on the 60-watt light for 3 seconds, turn it off, open the box and take out the paper, develop it, it comes into a positive. The process is chemical. Some people call it analog, as versus digital. Digital photography, I teach in digital photography. If the student wants to learn chemical, I'll teach them that too. But the best way to teach, I think, is with any kind of digital camera. It could be a pocket point and shoot like this, which is a Lumex LX7. This one is a Canon 7D with a real nice lens on it. The camera really is just a light-tight box. With digital, you have a computer inside that you push the button and the camera does the rest. It's almost a Kodak saying where you press the button and they do the rest. But the lens is what really is crucial on capturing the photograph. What's the best camera? What's the one you have with you? That's the one you want to use. The chemical photographs, and a lot of people have seen an Instamatic. It's very popular in the 1960s. This one has film in it. I re-roll in the dark. We'll get to that later. This one was from my father in World War II. It's a little camera that takes 8:8 film. They don't make this anymore, but it's the same size as 35. So you go in the dark and you re-roll the film onto this with the emulsion in, because when you roll it, the emulsion will be facing the lens where you want it. You can't get this mixed up or you won't have any photographs. Any good ones anyway. It's a nice little pocket camera. You can just, and he would slip it into his navy blouse in his pocket. He was in the Aleutian campaign, which was kind of like the Japanese war. It takes regular 35mm film. It comes on what they call a cassette or cartridge. And you can buy these still at many outlets. The camera, like a 35mm camera, standard, like what this lady has here. I have a Minolta SRT 101 that was given to me from a friend from Vietnam. I'll always have this camera. My first camera was an Argus C3. I don't have it with me, but I still do use it. And I was 15, I think, in high school when I bought that one used. The other type of camera is called a medium format. Medium format produces a square image, about the same size as this little window. And it does this through this lens. This is a viewing lens. The viewing lens goes up in a mirror and you can see what you're about to photograph. It's not exact. There's a little difference because, like when you do this, you'll see the image jump in front of you. The other medium format is the Mamiya 645. 645 denotes 6 millimeters by 4.5 millimeters. This is almost identical, but not in size. It's a little larger than the 35 in its aspect. The film is put into the back in a cartridge. The film looks like this. When you take it out of the wrapper, it comes like this. You put that in there, you roll it around, and then when it gets to number 1, it stops. You can take the picture. You crank this around again till it moves to 2, and you're ready for your second picture. Moving on and upward. In about 1838, they came out with a camera that focused by sliding a box back and forth until the image became sharp. on a glass plate. This is removable and you can put the film carrier in there. Now what this does, this is not original, this is a remake I built in my shop with a modern lens. So I call this a sliding box model 1838A number 5. It's the 5th one I built. The original model is 1838. A is for advanced because of this. They didn't have lenses like that in 1838, believe me. They had lenses about as good as your eye, if that good. They were called monocular 1. Like this. The top would be on the bottom of any camera. Your eyes work the same way. When you see somebody's feet, they're actually up here. Your brain flips it around so you're not walking on the ceiling. The next size, or the set side down, would be what's called a 3 1/4 by 4 1/4, and it fits into this Crown Graphic press camera. This is the size of the negative. 2 of them per holder. They call this a film holder. After you focus, and you can focus right here. You see these 2 little windows? It's a split image that you bring together by racking this back and forth until they meet as one. Or the back is a glass plate. Frosted glass, the image is projected there, top, bottom, right, left. So you have to get used to that. This one has a flash attachment, which I don't use, but I could use it. And the bulbs are clear and blue. Blue is for color film in the inside, if you choose to shoot color film. I don't. I shoot black and white because it's a lot easier. When you travel, you take a lot of holders with you. These are all the holders for the various cameras, except the 8x10. Like the 5x7, the 4x5, and in this one I have the 3 1/4 by 4 1/4, which is loaded with X-ray film right now that I'm experimenting with. This is a 4x5 camera. You've seen these cameras like this in some of those old movies in the 1930s with the press guy running around. A flag in his hat says press. Well, he's taking pictures at f8 and he focuses and shoots, no matter what it is. The flash goes off, it records an image. Something's in focus. It's news. You don't have to be exact. You just have to get the moment. So they call it f8 and B there. And it holds a 4x5, which is slightly larger than 3 1/4, 4 1/4. To get the shot, you have to meter a scene. I'm a landscape photographer. There's a lot of time. Wildlife, you've got to be pretty quick. So you have to do these pre-adjustments for the light. And the way you do it, you look through this thing, it's got a little meter. And it gives you, after the lecture, you come up and do a touchy-feely of all this stuff. Just don't drop it. Because I'll need it next week. But you would take a reading of 3 different areas, a bright, a medium, and a dark. You tabulate that on this little dial down here called the zone dial. The zone system is thought up by a fellow by the name of Ansel Adams and a mathematician by the name of Fred Archer. And they came up with the zone system, and it's a handy little thing to have on your light meter because you can adjust the values of what's going to be recorded on the film by just going by this zone dial. The next camera is a 5x7. And I found this in an antique shop for $30, and it was in very sad condition. There's the focusing plate of the 5x7. If you want a vertical, You just have to remove this and turn it up. And then your film goes into the back. After you focus and after you get your light meter reading, you set your aperture here. Given the amount of light, you set your time here. It's in 1/2, 1/5, 1/10 of a second. If you want something longer, you put it on B, which is called bulb. Remember the old bulbs? The squeeze bulb, you see? That's what that means. As long as you hold it, the shutter stays open. 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, close. Or you can do this. I don't know if you can see this. There it is. It's open. And it will remain open until I come back and close. That's called T, time, for timed exposure. Could be I've taken pictures 3 hours leaving that shutter open of the moonlight in the backyard, and there's no shadows because the moon is casting the shadows away from the camera. People say, what's the point? I said, no, you don't get the point. It's like Alfred Stieglitz, a great photographer in New York, said, wherever there's light, you can make a photograph, no matter how bright or dim it is. The other camera I use is an Ashko 4x5 that was given me by my first mentor, another photographer in Ferguson, Missouri, by the name of Walter Smith. And this too has the glass focusing plate, a film holder in it. There's a rack that you focus with. The closer you get, the further away it is. If something's close, you've got to rack this out to where the image is in focus because you're changing your focal distance from the lens to the subject, and back here you have to compensate for that distance.
What size is that?
Pardon?
What size was that? What size was that?
8x10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8. This is a 16 exposure roll of film. This is the negative. 8 inches by 10 inches. Remember the 35 millimeter? It's this big. That's why Ansel Adams used a lot of 8x10s are mural prints. The murals he made are 7x9 feet. This camera will do that. I almost put that back in. But that's the box. All this stuff, when you take it, you have to decide first what camera I'm going to need when I walk 2 miles over here. Because it weighs 12 pounds, this weighs 13. All right, that's just the camera. Then you got this box, another 13 pounds. Then there's this. In the summertime in Utah, this is an oven, and it bakes your brain. So that's why you use a white one with a real black back. It reflects the sunlight away from you. It's a little more comfortable, but still it's hotter than hell. Moving on to film. When you get your film and you take it out of it, you take it out in the dark room, completely dark, you have to use these for your eyes to feel where that film is. You take it off the spool, it becomes this. You want to get it in here on a reel where you can pour a developer on it. See these 2 tabs? That's where you put your fingers, put the film. And notice I'm not looking at what I'm doing. Because you do it so long, you become inept. very well for rolling the film in. Notice the fingers are touching the film. That doesn't hurt it because this is not the emulsion side. You put the emulsion side, see that, on the inside of the roll. So you just roll it in there. And once you get it all rolled up onto this reel, and this is a 36 exposure roll. I don't like that many. You get it like that, and then in the dark, you put it over here. I always use my belly as a backer, so I know what's there. Put it, just take 2 rolls. Put it in here, feel for where the hole goes, lock it. Now you can turn on the lights because, see that hole? It matches that little stem. Keeps the light from ruining the photograph while you take the temperature of the developer, say Microdol X. You pour it in there at 68 degrees Fahrenheit or 20 degrees Celsius until you see it come up right to here. And then knocks the air bubbles off the film. Every 30 seconds to a minute, you do this 30 seconds, lay it down. 1 minute later, you come back because you want to mix the chemicals against the silver highlights to produce the photograph from what's called a latent photograph. Latent, which means would be. After that, you dump the developer out, you put your stop in. Stop is acetic acid. It smells like vinegar. It is vinegar, but you don't use it full strength. After that, 15 seconds, you drop that out, give it a good wash, drop in what's called hypo, or, big word, sodium thiosulfate. Sodium thiosulfate is the fixer. It locks the image and gets rid of all the unused highlights, silver highlights that would be developed if you open that up in the light. In time, it would be gone. There is one existing photograph by the piece of a rooftop that still exists, that's not fixed. It's shown under extreme circumstances to anybody that's willing to look at it. In very dim light, you can see the first actually recorded photograph in Paris. And there are other processes came off of that, which daguerreotype, for one thing, was, I don't do daguerreotype. Some people do, but the original process includes mercury fumes from a heated source. And I don't want to be as crazy as poor Louis Daguerre. But the other size films, and this is a tank for 4x5. Snow film. It smells like sulfur. You must smell it. Pass that around. You get the smell what a dark room smells like.
I love that smell.
Smells like a fart. You take the sheet film out in the complete dark, and with a little guide, you take this guide and put it on the first slot. You run your first piece of film into this slot, and you move it to the next slot, etc., 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 until you get 12 exposures in this cage. I'm sorry, I'm not putting you off with your question.
Well, I was just wondering, how do you know which side of the film is the side that gets the emulsion?
Good point. Most film has notches. And you feel for those notches, you know that the emulsion's over here. If you have it over here, you know it's over here. So you turn it around and put the emulsion. You really don't have to worry about the emulsion until you load the holders. You don't want to get the back of the film. You want the emulsion showing so the lens can see it. One of the other tests is what I call a lip moist test. You press the film. If it sticks to your lower lip, that's the emulsion side. But just do a little bitty corner because That's saliva. That is not acid. It is a base, which all developers are an alkali, or not an alkali, an alkali. So we put that in there. Once again, here's a light trap. Put that in there, and there's only one way to get it closed. And then you agitate it this way, back and forth every 30 seconds, every minute. Okay, that's the various cameras. And mostly I shoot landscapes with 35mm. I'll be going through a city and I'll be taking pictures. And people say, wow, where's the batteries go? I said, well, for the light meter, the battery goes here. No, for the camera, I said, it goes here. I think Ansel Adams said once, the most important feature of any camera is the 12 inches behind it. If you measure from here to where you're viewing it, it's 12 inches. That's the most important aspect of any camera. So, I carry this with me for 4x5s, in this case, 3 1/4, 4 1/4. Keep a notepad of what you've taken by recording each exposure and the camera settings on that. There's other little aids you can use. Like I use this little thread counter. This is used in the textile industry for inspection of the sewing and stitching. You put that, it's right in focus with this plane here. So you move that to the back of the glass. Come on, Harold. You put your eye here and look around while you're focusing to make sure everything's in focus. If it's not, then you have to make adjustments. That's what all this elevation stuff is, tilting, turning. That's for a different type of photography that I do. That's architectural. But I don't do much of that. I could, but buildings are not as interesting as people. So, it's open for questions. How late am I?
Oh, you have plenty of time. It's only 7:30.
Oh, good. Got that within a half an hour. Yes, sir.
So like you see these guys in their black,
And half deaf.
you see these guys in their black room or with the red light on.
Yeah, the red light.
So can you do that stuff in the red light scenario then?
Not film.
No?
No,
Oh, no, that's for the paint.
printing paper.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
film is what we call pan-chromatic. It spans the spectrum. Pan. Like Pan America. They fly across them. Pan. Orthochromatic only sees blue, greens, some don't. Reds, no. Now, the advantage. I have re-rolled X-ray film, which is orthochromatic. I can see exactly what I'm doing in the dark when I cut film strips out of big sheets of X-ray film and use it in normal light. But it won't record red that well. And some reds, depending on the nanometers of light, it won't record it at all. And that's what I go for, is a certain nanometers radiated for my safe light. I can leave this stuff out for days. It will not be affected by the light. Some X-ray film is panchromatic. You just have to read and know what you're doing. Like when you build a camera, measure twice, cut once. Sometimes you cut too much. I did that. I was operating the same chain, the same table saw since I was 12 years old. When I turned 70, I cut the end of my thumb off. That's not a bad record of safety, really. More question? If you want to learn this, I can teach. I teach for free on a one-to-one basis. If it's a group like this, you owe me some money. Maybe a coffee and a donut. Yes, sir.
I have a Pentax ME Super that I bought like 1980s, and when the mechanism that rewinds the film manually, it's locked up. Do you know of anybody that repairs that equipment?
I could look at it. You got it with you?
No, I'm here in town, but I mean,
Do you have a film in it? Maybe it locked up with a cassette of film in it.
yeah, I don't know, and that's why I haven't opened it.
This has film in it right now. This is a rewinder like yours.
Yes. Okay, the part that's locked up is
This
right.
This.
Yes. Ooh. And several years back, I took it to a camera shop, and they said it would cost so much,
Yeah.
and they don't even know if they could get parts.
They're not telling your leg on that.
So that's,
Because inside this little cavity that comes off with all kinds of gears, pawl springs, it's miserable. Whereas on these older lenses, especially these two, Ilex, synchro shutters, those, you take two screws, you got the whole works, you're looking at it. I bought that lens for $50. If it's in good condition, $300. And depending on the size of the camera you're using, it sounds really impressive. Like, this is a 250 millimeter lens. Don't think 35 millimeter, think 5x7 or 8x10. Because then it's normal. It's like, you know, you're that big. So it's not really a telephoto. It's a normal lens, depending on the aspect ratio of the camera. Like right now, this one, dirty. It sat in the car and was on a dusty road. This is a 35 to 200, 35 millimeter. It won't work on that camera because the focal length of any camera, if you notice a film camera or a digital, there's a little zero with a line through it. That's the focal distance from the model point of the lens versus, so. Photography is a mixture of two sciences, father physics and mother chemistry. Go back to alchemy, when they tried to make lead into gold. I know, fool's errand. But that was the foundation of chemistry. Leonardo da Vinci, he was an autodidact like myself. There was no colleges back then. They just were smart guys. Or what Harvard would call, what did they call this guy? Street smart. Or the sciences were pretty rough back then. A lot of us, I think, were hung as being witches or burned at the stake. And a lot of them, I think, blew themselves up because nitroglycerin is really easy to make. They had all the chemicals back then. I'm sure somebody got blown up.
So you said you do both digital and film.
I
but
teach-
film is kind of your.
I teach to run a camera on digital, and I teach at a very easy pace. I first get their camera and I put it on aperture priority. The aperture priority is really important Because what do you want to have focused in the photograph? So with using aperture priority, you could go anywhere by setting the aperture ring, or in this case, in the digital sense, you change your aperture and the distance. You let the, like say if I'm making a photograph of you, if I'm shooting you, I don't want him in the photograph. Maybe I want him blurred. So I'll crank this thing down to an F2, which gets your eye, all to your face, and maybe your ear will fall off, but he'd get completely schmutzed out of the scene. Same with this. This has an aperture setting on it too. This only goes from 1.4 to 8. But the digital thing, it takes over. So you don't have to do much thinking. And digital is a good camera for people that just want to take pictures. But if you want to really get into the art of photography, you need one of these guys. Or even this guy. The girl. And then you always have to carry film with you. I got this Schiller's camera shop, the only camera shop left in St. Louis. We had 11 at one time. But Schiller's is hanging on and doing a good business. The bag that you change film in looks like a t-shirt without a neck hole. See? You move your product or film into this cavity here, which is double zippered. This is extremely light tight. You put your hands through here after you zip this up. These are your eyes. And you can roll that film, put it in a jar, take it out, and develop it in the daylight. You don't need a dark room. Just a bag. And it better be light tight. If not, use X-ray film and have to have a nice red darker light.
How hard is it to get that film these days? Is it real expensive?
I think if you shop Walmart, you can pick it up there. Target, I think you can pick it up there. Walgreens, I think you can pick it up there still.
Huh.
To get it developed,
I would never thought that.
I don't know if they sell black and white film. I buy 100-foot rolls and I have a little winder and I fill up rechargeable cassettes. I put the film in there and I do it in daylight. I take this thing apart, put the spool into this little cavity, bring the film over to it, tape it to the spool, close the lid, screw it down. There's a little crank on the side. And go click, click, click. That's 1 frame, 2 frame, 3 frame. Up to, I like to do only 20 per roll because my sink from the wire is this big, so that's about 20 exposures. 36 and it hit the floor and get all dirty. Not that my bathroom's dirty. Just that there's dust. And dust is our main enemy in photography when we're developing. But this is needed to see the image on the focus screen. If you don't have this, you're kind of like, where is it? Because the ambient light is blocking it out.
Now, like, what's the age on that camera?
This one?
Like, how far back does that go?
This is a 1941 World War II Navy camera.
Really?
That's why I left it the same paint color.
I thought it was a lot older than that.
I'm about to strip it off. No, I don't have any real old ones. This one's because of the screws. They didn't use slot head, they used crosshead screws. After the war, they had a lot of these screws that were just dumping. Camera companies picked them up by the ton. They used crosshead screws, so this dates it after 1945. So I'm about as old as this camera here, which I refinished and stripped all the paint off. It was a silver paint that was on it, and they did that to compete with other camera makers that were making aluminum bodied cameras. So they had all this wood left over. This is cherry wood. Beautiful wood. Why hide it under paint? Well, it favored looking like an aluminum posed camera, which I have one out in the car. But now these are my main tools, depending on what I want to take a picture of. Capture an image.
Do you have a favorite time to photograph?
Daytime.
Early or?
Sometime nighttime, depending on the shutter and how much time I have. What I want is an artist. Because photography is an art. A lot of people think it's a mechanical contrivance, but it's an art to capture a fraction of a second forever. And that's basically what the mystique was with me that drove me into photography. And the first time I saw that image come up on the paper, I still get a thrill out of that. And it's been over 60 years since I've been getting my hands wet in chemicals. There's a couple photographers, if you've seen pictures of them, they have black fingernails on the right hand. That's from a chemical called rodinol. It's extremely toxic, but it will turn your fingernails black if you develop a lot. Eddie Weston had black fingernails. Ansel Adams had black fingernails. Brett Weston had black fingernails. Paul Strand had black fingernails. We all did. It depended what hand was the prominent. You always tell a photographer because of his black fingernails. It's like a writer in the old days. He had ink on their fingers.
So if you go like hiking about in the woods and you want to take that, do you just fold the legs up and put that on your shoulders?
Yeah, yeah. I'll demonstrate. This goes here, or depending on the time of weather. Say it's in the winter. This helps in the winter. What I do, make sure it's stable. I don't have the thing tall, but it's held there. Put these legs together and I gauge the weight to where I put my hand on these bottom knobs. And then I have to carry that damn thing.
That's your counterbalance.
Huh?
That's your counterbalance.
Pretty much.
How much does that weigh?
You want to feel it?
No.
This is about 23 pounds right now. And this
It
is
looks
about
heavier.
13. So, yeah, get about 30 pounds on you.
Do you get a lot of looks when you're carrying it around?
I'm sorry.
You get a
Good
lot
thing
of,
I'm not blind.
do you get a lot of looks when you're carrying it around? I bet. Yeah.
They always stop me. What kind of camera is that? I said, it's a big one. It's a heavy one. But actually, this is my favorite camera. I'm going to pass this around. You can drop it if you want to. But we'll start here and you can weave it through the crowd. This is pretty light. Of course, it's made of poplar wood, which is a light, stable wood. It's light tight. And inside, I sprayed it with flat black paint, 3 coats. 3 coats. But it works the same like the other large format cameras. You just focus on the back. I have a lot. Oh, incidentally, if you want to make a vertical with any of these cameras, now you got a vertical. Some people call it portrait. I call it vertical because I do most of my work being a landscape. I do it in landscape mode right there. Oh, come on. That's the only, I'm going to fix this. This is just temporary forever. That was a stop for the focusing wedge.
Now, when you use that, do you do landscape with that?
Yeah, I can.
And how do you do it? Do you put it on
Put it on a
tripod? You do, you put it on a tripod. You can't just hold it, right? Or it'd be blurry?
You could, but that's cumbersome.
Yeah.
And how would you focus it?
Yeah, okay.
So yeah, it's a tripod camera.
Okay.
For that, I would use here
Mm-hmm.
this with film. Now, you can shoot other substances. Film is extremely expensive. For a 4x5, you're looking at $7 a shot.
Wow.
8x10, you're looking at $20 a shot.
Yeah.
You make one mistake, oh, that goes $20 down the tube.
Yeah.
4 times 20, you know it.
Right.
But you can use photographic paper and knock it down to 8 cents a shot. If that, maybe a penny, depending on the photographic paper. The only drawback is what's called speed of the negative or the paper. Film, you can go up to 400 ISO. Digital, you can go up to 1600, 3600 ISO. You can take a picture of somebody with a match across the room and get their whole face lit up. With paper, you are limited from 3 to 6 ISO. You're in the basement. So that requires a long shutter speed. If I would take a picture in here right now with this light, you'd have to hold still for about, I'd say 10 seconds at full open, which is, the aperture would be a 5.6. And you have to stay still. If you move, you can blink because your eyes will still show. But photographic paper is really interesting. And if you have a scanner, or even you take a picture with your digital camera of the paper negative, you can turn that to a positive with any kind of software. Even the software that came with your camera has what's called an inverter. And you invert the negative to a positive. I never change my negatives, even when I scan them. I keep them, and I keep the negatives in a folder. I edit a positive. It's like music. Ansel Adams said, the score, the written notes, is the negative. The print is the performance. You've done something to make it look presentable as an art form. You have increased the nuances, and maybe changed some things. Ansel also said, when he looks at a given scene, he sees stuff that's not visibly there. It's in his mind's eye. It's called pre-visualization. With pre-visualization, you are making the photograph in your mind, and you carry that through your notebook. Thank you for taking that. Carry that through your notebook into the editing phase next to your computer. And I like music being played when I'm editing. And I can read my notes, not so much the camera settings, but what will I feel at the time I open, or before I open the shutter? Was I pissed off? Was I happy? You know, little things like that. That is the art. And the science of photography, chemistry, and the physics of the lens. You don't have to go to college to take a good photograph. Be yourself. Read. Learn. Be concerned. That's been my mantra since I was 16 years old. I fell in love with the public library when I was 9. It's my autodidactic university. Thank you for coming. Any questions more? Because I'd love to talk about this shit.
I do have a question. With these goofy things, do you have, I can't
It's
figure
a
out how to...
tool. It's a camera. It's a tool.
Oh, okay. I can't figure out how to do black and white. I mean, there's no,
With that, neither can I.
oh,
I don't, people
Not
that
so
take a
bad.
picture of it and hand me their phone, and I go,
you can't?
I don't know how to work this thing. I know how to work that, but I don't know how to work this thing.
Well, just press the button.
Oh, okay. Where's the button?
There's no, I don't see a
No,
BMW.
there is no button, it's an icon.
So what's the oldest camera you have? Do you have any older than these?
I've got some twice as old as me. Lenses I got go back to 1885. Just the lens, I don't have the box. The oldest box I have it belonged to my great-grandfather, Robert Thompson. He was a greenhouse builder and bought a camera, and this 4x5 camera in 1903. He took pictures of a greenhouse he built in St. Louis. It was the first large jewel box we had. And later on they called it that and put it on a hill. But this one was different. It was torn down because it was made of wood and plaster. And it was mostly just glass held by a frame for the 8 months of the fair. But he did reglaze the one you see today. If you go to Missouri Botanical Gardens, there's one greenhouse left that was a log bottom. And my great-grandfather built that one. It's called a Lydian house. As you walk down the steps into the main part of the garden, it's over on your left. It's a big brick structure with a fan, stained glass window on the top before the door. That was the trademark of log bottom. There's three other greenhouses in St. Louis at Tower Grove Park. One is Piper Greenhouse, or the Piper Palm House. And behind it is two other greenhouses they use as storage. But those were log bottom.
Did you say your grandfather
Great-grandfather.
worked on the Linnean house? Because supposedly that's the oldest greenhouse, I believe, east of the Mississippi, still
Yeah,
standing.
he came out of New York to build that and go back. That finally, the St. Louis well-to-do people said, why don't you bring Mr. Thompson back into St. Louis and just establish him? And so we formed the Thompson Greenhouse Construction Company. It was on Cass Avenue.
Did we get to see some of your work?
Pardon?
Some of your artwork? Some of your...
I should have brought some, but this was a lecture.
The camera there that you say is $20 a shot. Do you
This
spend, yeah, when you take that, or is that what you're spending?
No, I'm using X-ray film and paper in that.
Oh, okay, okay.
I have not used film in that camera since 1972. And that was from some stock from Walter Smith that he gave me when he retired. He also gave me this camera here, the Crown Graphic. This one I picked up at a yard sale, I think, for $20.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Can we look you up on here and see some of your work?
I'm on Facebook.
Okay.
And if you're not on Facebook, sorry, miss out.
I am on Facebook, so under your name.
Yeah, just friend me.
Do you
Please
have a
do.
card?
Hmm?
Do you have a business card?
You know, I'm a terrible businessman, I'm a good artist.
Well, start.
I didn't bring any with I didn't bring any with me because I didn't feel it was appropriate.
Oh.
But I will teach, and if the museum has me back for a teaching session, I could teach for a week, park my camper out back, develop in the camper with the student, or two students at a time, because it's kind of tight.
Only so much room in the bathroom.
Yeah, definitely.
Are you finding that younger people are wanting to do film
Yes.
more now?
Yes, they are coming, I came back after digital. There's some, I don't know, thing about pride in workmanship that digital won't give you because it's doing all the work. You have to think about, like, I'm out in the woods, I sit down, I'll lay the camera maybe I'll just set it up on a tripod, and I'll sit down, take out my notebook, look around, make a little sketch of the scene. If I don't like it, I rip it up, put it in my pocket, walk on. And it takes me about a half an hour to think about it. Is the light right? Would the light be right if the sun's over here? Do I have to wait? This is a good trick. Take your fist, put the horizon here. Look at a tree or something, go 1, 2, 3, 4. See the sun? 4 hours. And you can also get 15 minutes. You can also tell you where you are on the great circle of the earth and longitude, the distance.
I thought it was interesting. I heard Anita talk to Linda here, and Anita's a fantastic artist, and she said, you really need to be a photographer too, at the same time.
Yes,
Yeah.
but that's what I have to use.
That's all you're
And then when I'm after his expression, light,
You can do comparative
Shadow.
shopping with that.
yeah.
Comparative shopping. Oh, this is so-and-so. I'll go over here to this store. Click. Oh, I got it for $10 less.
But I just like to know how to use this better to get better photographs to paint from. Because the better the photograph,
That
the
would
better
be-
the painting.
That would be an editing software, and they have editing software already built into those. And some you can go online. I think there's one. I forget the name of it right now. But there's a couple free ones out there that you can get. You don't have to buy Photoshop each month.
Yeah,
I'm still using Photoshop CS5, which came with a disk. So when I change computers, I just have to load in the disk. And it does everything I want to do. Hell, I'm colorblind. That's why you see a lot of my work in black and white. Color to me is constrictive. You're seeing the color. Yeah, autumn, that's nice. You ever go to Utah? The tan. All of it. Even the sky and the dust storm is tan. You go to Baja in Maine. That's pretty. But you want to get your feelings on a print. Black and white is wide open to your feelings because you can change those colors, which aren't really colors, they're shades of gray. But when I say black and white photography, I'm actually saying shades of gray photography. But when you look at a black and white print of these out here, any print that has black, grays, and white, you're looking at shades of gray. And what you do with those shades, how you intensify it or drop out, we call it dodging and burning areas. You can bring out certain things. There's one famous picture of Ansel Adams where there's a horse way out in the mid-frame. There's this big mountain. But he highlighted that. He dodged around everything and brought that horse out. And that's where your eye falls, right there. That's how you direct your audience to what you want to say to them.
You know something, you probably already know this, okay? But you're talking about greenhouses. After the Civil War, I seen a documentary about after the war, there was all this surplus, the glass plates.
Ken Burns.
Yeah, and they used them in greenhouses, and a lot of those history in those photographs just faded away.
They scrape the emotion off of those to get the sunlight to come through.
Yeah.
You go to the George Eastman house in Rochester, New York, 900 East Avenue. I know the exact address. I've been there 3 times. Love that place. It's like Mecca. And it's east. So when I go in there, I notice all these windows. He could have used a whole big pane of glass for one window. No. You know what the size of each window is in the frame? 8 by 10. Why? Because he was making glass plates and had such a supply of glass, he said, "Oh, just go over to the plant and get all that glass and bring it down, we'll make the windows here." He helped the workers build that house, by the way. He didn't just sit down on his duff and smoke a cigarette.
That was his home? That was his home?
And when something wasn't right, he looked at the house and said, "Oh, no, this has to go over a little more." 6 inches. They cut the house in half and moved it. 6 inches. He knew what he wanted. He didn't like music. Or he liked music, particularly Fritz Kreisler, a violinist. He was a guest in that house many times in the music room, where if you go in the front, take a right, that's the music room. Take a left, is his game room. Go straight back, it's a trophy room. He's got an elephant, a couple of wild, he was a wild game hunter. And you pass an organ, which is the largest organ in the United States. Well, privately owned organ. And because he wasn't a musician and couldn't read music, he had a box installed that had rolled paper with holes in it that would play the organ for him like a player piano. It's a beautiful organ, by the way, 100 rank. Beautiful piece of music. But no, if you go east, go to Rochester, New York, spend a day at the museum, you'll love it. If you like photography. Even if you don't, go. But I was a pane of glass away from one of the most famous photographs of World War II, made by Joseph Rosenthal, who worked in the Associated Press. He used a 4x5 camera on Iwo Jima.
The flag?
Yeah.
I met one of the original guys. His name was Charles Lindbergh that did the original picture. You know, they reshot that picture later
My
on.
ex-father-in-law flew with Charlie Lindbergh on the email route between Chicago, Kansas City, and St. Louis.
Now, I'm not talking about Charles Lindbergh
Oh,
that flew, you know, to Paris. I'm not talking about that. This was another guy. His name was Charles Lindbergh, and he was one of the original guys that put the flag up at Iwo Jima.
okay.
And later on, they recreated that.
Thank you.
That scene. Yeah.
See, you learn things from your students. Two-way communication thing. That's what learning's all about.
He was a flamethrower guy
Oh boy.
in the war. Yeah.
Give me nightmares. I bet it did him too.
I wouldn't doubt it.
What camera, I mean, as far as like if you were to go with the digital camera, what would you recommend for somebody who's never used digital?
I would say whatever you're willing to spend. You can, say you buy a camera online, used. Yeah, I start with something small, something that would fit your needs for whatever you want to take. You want to do general photography, anything will work. Once you select the lenses to fit that camera, you're kind of stuck. It's like with the Canon system. I have 8mm to 600. That's about $40,000 worth of glass, plus the camera. So I'm kind of locked in. And because they're a few years old, the resale, you know, you're talking depreciation, not appreciation. Right. Now, with these older cameras, some of them, years ago, you could pick up for $50. The lenses, less than that. Now, 4 times as much, maybe 5 times as much in price, because it is coming back. People are appreciating making a photograph, not just taking it.
I have a question. What about slides? Is that like gone?
Actually, no. They make Ectochrome, it's called Ectochrome. They make Ectochrome 64, I think.
I bet it's expensive.
About maybe $15 a roll.
Can you process it in your system? No.
I don't do C41. I'm colorblind. I can't. I'm red-green, blue purple. Both ends of the spectrum. Somewhere in between, yeah, I can see that. I get confused. Some pinks I see, like a light pink, I see it as a gray. Lovely pink sweater, but
I have that same thing. I have that same thing with colors.
welcome to black and white.
Green and red on a map. I gotta really study
I
it.
did figure out a way to use a Macbeth chart that has numbers. If you see 000, that's white. 255, 255, 255, it's black.
Huh.
Or no, other way around. Dyslexic. So I figured a way to make the photograph using those numbers of a certain color. And there's what, 64 million different shades of color of each one. So it gets involved. So I figured out to use the Macbeth chart for my color editing. And it comes out pretty good. Or you just go up there and hit auto, and then the computer does it for you. With this, what's called artificial intelligence moving in, I think writing, history, photography is in jeopardy of losing the human element. It's like with a cell phone. I talk to people, I don't text. I can't on a flip phone. And if you don't want to talk, you don't hear me. I'll text you. I said, no, you won't. I can't get it. You know that. I've told you repeatedly, I don't text. Mark that on your... No text. No, we're losing that personal bit of communication and feel to each other. Look in the eye, the touch, the handshake, texting. I hope I said that soft enough not to be on film. Or digital. Yes, sir.
If you have colorblind problems there, what do you see when you have a stoplight?
Red's on top, green's on the bottom.
I got a problem, that's what it is.
And then there's always these things.
They're trying to change
Only
things
sideways.
right on top.
Yeah, when they're sideways, yeah.
I have a son that is colorblind, and we were at their house in Texas, and they had a low place, and they moved it sideways.
Yeah.
Could not tell, is it green or is it red?
Well, the green one's the bright one, the dim one's the red one.
Oh, it is.
You can do that too.
I'll tell you the really tough ones are at intersections.
The flashing yellow.
Oh,
Yeah,
That
at
gives me all the
intersections, is that red stop or is that caution yellow
Some of
at
the
the
older,
intersection?
some of the older stops, flashing warning. The amber looks a bit red to me, so I'll stop.
Yeah,
I'm going to get hit in the back one of these days.
I try to watch what other cars are doing too.
Yeah. But usually they accompany it with a stop sign.
I know.
I got a ticket, or a warning once because I went through a red flashing light, but it didn't have a boulevard stop sign on it. And that was on Highway 67 in Festus, Missouri. I think I was 20 years old.
I have trouble with navy and black a lot of times. I really gotta look. Dark navy and black.
Yeah, I get
really
that
gotta
too.
look.
Welcome.
Yeah. My cousin's husband, he was the same way. His wife would have to lay his socks out. He'd wear different color socks, you know. Yeah.
I'm all over tonight.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Any
Thank
final
you very
questions
much
for Mr. Kyle?
Thank you very much for your questions. I hope I answered everything. A couple people were a little quiet. You got a good smile. I keep on that.
Well, thank you. I noticed your belt buckle too. Yeah. Kodak.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a Kodak freak. You can always trust the yellow box.
There you go. All right. We thank you so much for joining us tonight, Mr. Kyle. And We appreciate our sponsors for the evening. I'm Annette Roth. We're tonight's sponsors for our program. And stay tuned for more programs coming your way at the St. Genevieve Museum Learning Center. Thanks a lot.